Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HP Podcast, episode number 302. Some of you may think it's 301, but you're going to have a hard time believing this. I made a typo, and I copied and pasted last week's. I know it's very unlike me. Okay. But episode 302, welcome on in. I'm Ben, and with me here today are the beautiful boys. Brandon.
Hello, Ben.
Hello. Greetings.
How's
What
it going?
is the symbol on your shirt?
It's a brand called The Lurking Class.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a skull man.
Oh, okay.
Skull man.
I don't think
know.
I've ever seen you wear that before.
Yeah, I haven't.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I've seen you wear. I think I've seen your entire wardrobe at this point. Probably.
You actually
throughout our
haven't.
lives.
There's a lot of shit I have that I just never wear. Usually it's
Yep.
like the same like couple things, and then occasionally I'll like find something that's buried underneath something else and I'll flop it in the rotation for a while. But yeah, I don't know. I have too much clothes, boys. I have this problem where like I want to do something with all of my clothes. And it's not that I buy a lot of clothes, it's that I don't throw away a lot of clothes.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for a long time. So I probably just need to go through and like throw stuff away. Because not that I guess if it's in good enough condition to give away, I'll give it away. But a lot of it's just straight up old, and I probably need to, part ways with it gracefully. It doesn't need to burden somebody else.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I'm doing all right tonight, boys.
Good.
Doing all right. Interesting, a fun-filled day for everyone but Dave. Well, maybe for other reasons, but
Well, if Dave wore that shirt out of his house today, he probably got some attention. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, big
God,
fella.
dude.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just basking in your manliness right now.
Yeah.
show us a smile, Dave.
Hey,
Oh, you look
I've
pretty
got-
when you smile.
I've got a hairy chest.
It's nice.
Some have described it as like an eagle on my chest.
my God.
It's yeah. I would have been popular in the '70s, but
Oh my God.
yeah, and it's cool because it's kind of like stopped here, so I don't have like the whole hairy body thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm also sick, so I'd like to apologize for that. That I sound awful,
dare you.
and I have this is for my nose today. It's beside my
Today.
desk.
Today.
Likely, allegedly, you know.
And if
for
I
the nose.
sneeze, I'll try and mute. But yeah, so my our friends who have kids have been telling us for the longest time that daycare's great, but be prepared to get sick constantly. And sure enough, on Thursday, my daughter came home for the first time with the sniffles, and we spent the whole weekend sick too. So
Wow.
yeah, that's okay.
Did you chastise her and teach her about cleanliness after that?
Oh, I kicked her out. She doesn't live here anymore.
Wash your
I'm just
hands. You're like,
That's good. That's important.
Yeah, yeah, but
Um,
it's tough. It's tough because you can't do anything for them. You know, they just cry and they sniffle and they got the stuffed nose and you feel bad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
As Brandon mentioned today, as we're recording this, it's Tuesday, election day. I hope everybody who was eligible, meaning United States people, Dave, you don't count, went out and voted today, or is maybe watching the show in line or something like that. Cool on you if you did that. But it's important. I don't, I mean, I have my preferences. We all have our preferences, but like,
sure.
I legitimately just care that you actually exercise your right to do it.
Yeah.
That's more important to me. So hopefully you did that. That means a lot coming, as the polls are closing. I'm sure that I'm telling people to vote. But Dave, in Canada, I don't think you guys have any rights. So what do you do for voting there?
Voting?
They just tell you. They just tell
They
you
just tell
who it
you.
is. Yeah.
I had a phase when I was in university where I loved funny graphic tees, and I bought this one tee and I never had the courage to wear it, but it was a picture of Stalin and he had a "I voted" sticker on his shirt. And I just thought I'm gonna run into like some like Eastern European anti-communist person and really piss them off.
Yeah.
So I never wore it. But yeah, I mean, it's Brandon, you mentioned that, we don't get to enjoy this day, but trust me, we're enjoying it.
Mhm.
Watching from a distance.
The whole world's enjoying it. In fact, I
Yeah.
keep seeing this advertisement on Twitch about like there's all these neon signs. Have you guys seen this ad on Twitch?
I don't think so.
It's
I have Twitch Turbo.
It's and that's really what I should get. We've talked about it a bunch, Ben. I agree with you. But it's like all these neon signs that's like disinformation and lies and all this stuff, and it's like we are watching from afar to give you the most accurate news, BBC. And I'm like, I guess the rest of the world is kind of just like waiting and watching to see what happens. Who's going to roll over the place that has the most bombs and guns and freedom in the
That's right.
world. So
That's right. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people and I understand maybe I'm in a different position than a lot of people who are more directly affected by, specific policies and everything. But for me, it's funny when I see people on Twitter and wherever else like, oh, I'm just nervous today and I'm doom scrolling and yada, yada. And I'm like, look, I think there's a good and a bad decision to everything. But I'm having fun watching it all. Like this is like political football, really, if you think about it.
yeah.
It's a game, and the thing is, like, it does matter, but it's a game to these people. It's not about everything else. It's about winning and losing,
Right.
just like the Super Bowl. So, anyway, hopefully you can take time to enjoy it. And I actually like the science stuff too. Like, I really get into the analytics, and when they when all the news stations pull up those boards and they're like tapping on stuff and they're like showing you them, and then I'm like, oh wow, that's an interesting analytic they just put. Like, I'm a nerd, I'll admit it. I like numbers,
Sure.
but I enjoy it. And honestly, at the end, I'm like, oh okay, that's how it went. Cool.
Yeah.
But I really like the ride on the way there.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't wait for my mailbox to stop being filled with garbage.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
Does that
most
ever
of
stop? Election
most
or
of-
not?
well, most mail is garbage, but I think it either close to doubles or triples. I started to just check it every couple days because I was tired of throwing shit out so often. how many millions of dollars is spent on just paper
lot.
that gets tossed in the trash? That's what makes me more mad than anything. Is like, is it possible that a slip of paper would change somebody's mind? I guess in theory, right? But if you ask me, your piece of paper's not doing shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be so honest with you. I don't think your piece of paper's doing anything but annoying the piss out of me and filling up my trash can.
Well, there are statistics that say like the signs at polling places work. People literally walk in to polling places not knowing who they're going to vote for. Sadly, that's the case.
That's weird.
And also, it does, name recognition means a lot, especially in the smaller races, the less known ones. I saw a thing today that was like Google keyword interest, and it's like who is running for president went like this, and then had a huge spike in the last like 4 days. It's like, how did you not know?
Dude, last minute decisions, man. Never know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'll tell you this, Brandon. There's a life hack. I don't, if you're registered one of the major parties, you're going to get tons of mail from both sides. If you're registered as an independent, you're going to get mail from both sides because they want to sway the independents. If you're registered as some minor party like the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, whatever, they don't care about you. They're not mailing you. You don't matter. You're insignificant. So that's most of the reason I keep my registration as not only not independent, but just off the grid. That's what I try to do.
That's
I don't need all that extra mail.
yeah.
You know?
Do you think the like Anarchy Party sends a lot of mail out? Maybe I'll just maybe that'll like actually just take it to zero. Maybe that'll just take it to
Just
no
comes
mail
directly
ever.
from Doom Guy. I want to
Comes
register
directly-
for that party.
It comes directly from Mad Max. Like,
I don't know about that. Is there an anarchy party?
you would think there has to be somewhere.
I mean, people can make whatever political parties they want, right?
That's what I'm saying.
So Derek O asked a question that we're talking about politics in a very general sense, and I don't really want to get into specific politics.
Correct.
But Derek O asked, how many mailers did Ben send out when he ran for mayor? I think that I can answer this because it's about me, right? I personally sent out 0 mailers, but
My
the
man.
party sent out mailers on my behalf that I did not get to proofread ahead of time,
That's
that I
bullshit.
later had to disavow because they said things I didn't think on them.
Disembowel.
But disembowel. No, not disembowel. Disavow. So yeah, and in my state, you have to run for one party or the other, or else you literally don't have a chance. And I was trying to get somebody out and everything. But anyway, the party like paid for stuff, took my picture that I had on like all my my social media stuff, because that was really all I was doing, and put it on a billboard, sent out mailers. They probably spent, I don't know, a couple $1,000s at most, I'd say, which is a lot for me, but not a lot for them. And yeah, my name is Ben Smith, and I did not approve this message. Yeah, that is almost exact. I was very friendly with the person I was running against in like the general election, and she messaged me. She was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "I have literally never seen that before in my life. I did that. That was not me." So anyway, so that kind of stuff happens. Like, yeah, the politicians always send stuff too, and they approve stuff, but a lot of the time they don't ever see it. Like, they never even see what goes out. It just goes out.
It just has quotes of things that you've never said on it.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen a brown eye or two up close, in quotes, Ben Smith.
It wouldn't be wrong. I mean, I guess, right?
Lordy, lordy, lord.
Ben Smith beer cups. Oh, there was someone who bought cups for my campaign, and that was actually kind of cool, to be honest with you. But anyway, enough political talk, even though it's about me at this point. I guess we should talk about video games. But first, I should talk to you about, here we are, the old HP podcast. You can support us over at handsomephantom.com. No, that's not even true. You can support us at patreon.com/handsomephantom. We appreciate having you all there for as little as $1 a month. Thank you very much for being there to support us. Get our shows ad-free and early, if you like. You can also join the Discord over at handsomephantom.com/Discord, where you can hang out with us, chat about whatever bullshit you want. We approve. Dave put together the story. I was having a hard time finding anything, and I was also just in a very bad frame of mind today, and so I was like, guys, if you can put it together any stories, that'd be great. And Dave, I'm very thankful to him that he stepped up. But if the stories suck, it is Dave's fault. I just want everybody to know that.
I can confirm in advance that the stories suck. So talk amongst yourselves for an hour.
In fairness, it's not Dave's fault, but
Yeah.
whatever. Push Square says in a devastating statement issued today, Sony announced the closure. This was a while ago.
We're starting off good.
Wait, Dave.
Okay,
October.
I know. So it was last Tuesday.
Dave,
But
you read you do this story. You take
okay,
it away.
I'll read the story.
Thank
and,
you.
So, I don't know if I'm sure people have seen this image going around the internet of Herman Hulst, but they've kind of like doctored up the image so it looks like he's got the red lips of the Joker and it's kind of got
Yeah.
a green filter on it. But
Great.
yeah, from Push Square, in a devastating statement issued today, Sony announced the closure of 2 studios it acquired under co-CEO Herman Hulst's tenure. Again, we talked about this last week, but it's not deterred it from chasing the live service gravy train. The executive said that expanding beyond PlayStation devices and crafting engaging online experiences alongside our single player games is key for us as we evolve our revenue streams. In other words, it's not going to stop trying. The industry, and PlayStation specifically, finds itself in a tricky situation at the moment. Single-player games are taking longer to make and costing more money than ever, and the higher-ups at Sony are eyeing releases like Fortnite and Genshin Impact with envy. While these games cost a lot of money to maintain, they're outrageously profitable. The platform holder had hoped a title like Concord could enjoy similar success. The game was taken offline in just 2 weeks. It's interesting that Hulse talks specifically about expanding beyond PlayStation devices, as the manufacturer has been porting games to PC and looking to get into mobile for quite some time. It shuttered smartphone developer Neon Koi earlier today, last week, which was reportedly working on an action game designed to span multiple devices. We need to concentrate on titles that are in line with PS Studios' pedigree and have potential to reach more players globally, he admitted. So, I realize this is kind of expanding on what we talked about last week with Sony shutting Firewalk, who developed Concord, and Neon Koi. But I kind of, we started to get into this subject, but then we moved off it, which is what does Sony do next? And clearly Herman Hulst has said, we're not done. We know of Fair Games.
I'm not leaving.
we know of Marathon, which are 2 live service kind of games that are coming up. So I guess the reason I wanted to talk about this is I was curious to see what you guys think. What does Sony do next in the live service genre? What would you like to see them to do, and what do you think is the smart move? Brandon, I'll kind of throw to you first.
Yeah. I guess it's not surprising to me that they would continue to try. I mean, they took some lumps on the head, but the biggest share of the market and the biggest share of the profits right now is in that space. I think if the market wasn't so big, they would probably cut their losses here, but that's not really an option. And that's the way the industry is kind of going right now and has been going for years now at this point. So I don't really think they have an option. I think if we were in a bubble and live service was failing, Sony would quit right now. Like, that's the kind of company they are. They would have failed hard enough with this failure of Concord that would have been it fiscally, because typically Sony's pretty willing to get out when the getting's good, to kind of save their own asses. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the future looks like for Sony, to be honest with you. I think they'll try to dig really deeply into their IP bank, and I think that's probably what they should have done originally. When it comes to live service, I think that either you have to have a wholly unique idea that brings something new to the table and is interesting and fun, and differentiates, or you have to rely on things like established properties to kind of lean on. And that's something Fortnite's done, is it started off with a very strong, albeit not newer idea, and then it leaned very heavily into properties that weren't even its own. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Sony is going to license other stuff. They have enough in their bank. Epic didn't have that when they started, and so they started with the whole licensing thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think that they don't have an option but to continue forward, and I think they've learned quite a bit. I'm more nervous for, what's the other one? Fair whatever?
Fair game $.
Yeah, that one worries me quite a bit. Just because I don't even remember what the fuck it's called, and it's an awful name. It makes me like the title makes me think it's forgettable, and that's saying something. Okay. As far as Marathon goes, I think that they might have a little bit of something here, and that's only because of Bungie. Okay, but that will not be enough alone to save this game. I think that Marathon by default will not have the same failure that Concord had only because of Bungie and only because it's technically an already existing IP, right? But that's all they have. So they really got to work to like make it up to par with the market. Don't make it 1-to-1, but like understand where the market's at. And when you release the game, not when you start making the game, when you release the game, you need to predict a little bit how that's going to go. Because if you're working on a game like Concord for 8 years, the market's changed quite a fucking bit. And maybe back then it would have done better. But as they continue to work on Marathon, I think they need to kind of be like preemptive and like kind of assess where things are going and set themselves up in such a way that maybe you can't predict how the market's going to go with free-to-play games and live service, but maybe like set yourself up to be able to adapt on the fly, because that's going to be completely crucial. I mean, even if you look at the way things were 10 years ago, it's just not the same anymore, and it's constantly changing. So,
Ben.
Yeah. I agree with so much of what Brandon said there. I think the big difference I would make in it, the biggest difference I would say, is I'm starting to think maybe Sony should just not try to develop any of their own properties for live service games, because it's pretty clear that buying a company that is unproven, which is what they've continually done, except for in the case of Bungie, it just isn't working. And sinking a bunch of money into somebody in an unproven property in an unproven studio isn't going to work. I think that what they should do is more like what they did with Helldivers, where we don't really know the specific details, but there's a company making something. Maybe Sony owned the IP. I'm not sure because of the Helldivers 1, but they funded them. They put it out exclusively on their system and PC, and they made probably a ton of money for not having to have any of the culpability on their own shoulders. Certainly they had money in the game to help fund the game. Money in the game to help fund the game. Yeah, that works. But it just seems like they should be identifying good talent out there and profiting off their success, for lack of a better way to say it. I mean, there's a good chance Helldivers wouldn't have been as great as it was without Sony's money. So they're contributing in that way. But just let people do what they're already good at. There are very, very, very few live service games right now that were a studio's first game. Live studio games that are successful. Very few. There are a couple. Genshin. I don't know if that was their first game, but it was their first one that anybody had ever heard of. PUBG, I guess, technically. Although that was a completely new genre and it blew up because of that. But otherwise, everything else has been iterations on previous IP, or at least studios that had already been making games. I mean, even Fortnite was an accident. Fortnite was never supposed to be a battle royale.
no.
It was a survival game that they made a battle royale mode in once PUBG was popping off, and there was no console equivalent for it. So I just think Sony needs to fund these other projects, and maybe they eventually buy the studio, whatever. But I think wasting the development time on unknowns in this instance is bad for Sony. I think if they were going to have an unknown studio develop a live service game based on some of their previous IP, maybe that's okay. Maybe that works for them. But just this whole, with both Fair Games and with Concord, neither one of those games look like anything good to me. And maybe they're solid games, but they're not going to hit. And that's the sad state the industry's in, but that's the state the industry's in. And they're a business, and they need to do what businesses do. Dave, I've also just decided that you're going to host the rest of the show.
Okay, no problem. I need to understand what Sony's expectation is, because I feel like in the Concord example, I think they expected a mega hit right out the gate. And if you look at Destiny's trajectory, even the way Fortnite kind of took off, it didn't happen instantly. It wasn't overnight. Both of them sort of evolved into the successes that they were today. So I think if Sony is going to take the time to invest in this, then pulling out 3 weeks after the game launches, just like, you have to give the game time to breathe, and you can't just invest up to launch and then decide if this isn't a mega hit right out the door, then we're going to pull the plug. Like, we've seen this time and time again where these games have such short leashes, and it's just, I wish a few of them would have some time to build a player base, because we've seen so many redemption stories in this industry over the past 10 years. So I don't know, if it doesn't succeed right out the gate, then that doesn't necessarily mean that it's dead. But the other thing is, me personally, I don't need Sony to be a big player in the live service market, and they've done so well for so many years focusing on single player and some multiplayer. Like, I grew up with Resistance, and that was a lot of fun, and we saw something like Helldivers earlier this year that was great. So I keep hearing like single player games are becoming so much more costly to develop, but like, what made you more money, God of War or Concord? So I get that God of War and Spider-Man 2 cost a lot to make, but I'm pretty sure you did better with them than you did with Concord. So I wish they would stick with what works for them, and stop chasing these trends and catching lightning in a bottle with trying to replicate like the Fortnites or the Apexes or Genshin or something like that, because it's just, I don't know. I'm happy to just keep seeing Sony do what they've done well for so many years, because the way they're going isn't great. The other thing I wanted to mention is, like, is it fair for Herman Hulst to be taking all the flack here? Because it's been well documented that Concord was developed for the better part of a decade, and I'm pretty sure Herman Hulst inherited this situation. And yes, the closure and the launch is on him. Maybe the positioning the game at $40 right off the bat is also him, but I feel bad for him that, like, he's already become the villain, and he hasn't really been around all that long. I don't know. Is that fair? Do you guys think? I know he's in a position where he has to answer for these things, but I don't know.
I think the reality is Herman Hulst was in, how long was it? Like 3 to 5 years, something like that, was in the position of being over the studios.
Right.
And, not essentially second in command right there at that point. So what we're hearing is that he was a giant advocate for this game specifically, and he's the one who pushed this game specifically. So maybe all of the crap we're giving him isn't to blame, or he's not to blame for, but it seems like for this game, he was in a position for at least several years where he was pushing it and pushing more funding onto it and everything else. So it seems like with this one specifically, but maybe not all the rest. You said something else, Dave, though, that I wanted to mention. You said like maybe they need to give him some time to breathe. I generally agree with you there, but I don't know if that's the solution for a game that sells less than 25,000 copies in 3 weeks from a first-party studio. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the right call there is, other than delay it and do something different with it, or they realize it's not going to sell. But I don't know. After 3 weeks for a first-party shooter from a major publisher, the biggest console manufacturer, other than, I guess, Nintendo technically, I don't know. It's probably the right move to pull it at that point.
Yeah.
Cut your losses.
On to the next one. I guess I'm going to read this, Ben, if you want to.
Yeah, you are. That's
switch the headline.
I already did.
This comes from videogamer.com. Skyrim lead on the death of video game expansions. After 6 months, the audience has moved on. Since the release of Morrowind in 2001, Bethesda Game Studios have always been supported with sizable expansions after launch. Just like the days of old, the studio's latest release, Starfield, has just released its first expansion in the form of Shattered Space. However, Bethesda is one of a few studios still releasing expansions in the modern era. In an interview with Video Gamer, decades-long Bethesda veteran, Skyrim lead, and Starfield systems designer Bruce Nesmith explained the reasoning behind the death of expansions in recent years. While some major titles do receive expansions or DLC missions, the audience does not stick around long enough to make huge post-launch support possible. Tying into past discussions about the unsustainable nature of games development, Nesmith also explained that the fast paced nature of the market means that audiences for huge expansions are near non existent. Outside of huge successes such as Skyrim or Fallout, expansions just aren't feasible for a majority of games. First of all, it's a market within a market, the Skyrim lead said. So if your game sells, just random figures, 10 million copies, you are not going to sell 10 million DLCs. You just aren't. You're going to sell a subset of that. So if your game is not some behemoth like Skyrim, the amount of sales you're going to get from your DLC may not justify the development cost of it. So, curious what you guys think. Obviously, in like the Xbox 360 era, I think when DLCs, paid DLCs, really started to come on, and it seems to have petered out. But we're still seeing, just this year alone, Erdtree, Shattered Space, Phantom Liberty late last year. Do you guys think DLCs are slowly dying, or have they just evolved into something different? Brandon, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think DLCs are necessarily surviving, but I think most games, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with them here, that most games don't need it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think of things like Phantom Liberty. I think of things like Blood and Wine. And even these bigger games, I feel like DLCs are something that has to be single player first, and we've seen a huge deviation in the market where a lot of the focus has gone to multiplayer. So I feel like these single player experiences aren't always front of mind as far as game industry goes and as far as where the money's being made. So I feel like that's probably a part of it that's changed a lot over the past 10 to 15 years, is that multiplayer has been the main focus of most developments, even based off of what we were talking about earlier. Even some of the big single player companies are really trying to focus in on multiplayer stuff. So I think that does have a reason behind it. But yeah, no, I don't think they're dying. I just think that it doesn't make sense for all games to have DLC like back in the day. When you had many single-player driven experiences, and where, I don't know, maybe this is like anecdotal, but it's like if you have one game or a couple games, there were less games, is what I'm trying to say. And so there's less to play, and so maybe you hone in on something you like and you want to get more of it. But now the market is so saturated, there's so many games that, yeah, I understand why people aren't coming back, because there's more fish in the hole. You know what I mean? There's more fish to be caught than there used to be. And I think that also has a contributing factor.
Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot there. And I think that for me personally, I don't really come back to DLCs almost ever, or expansions, or whatever people want to call them. There's maybe a few that I've ever bought, and less than I've bought have I actually played. Like I think I bought Spider-Man 2018's DLC because it was on sale for like $4 at one point, and I played a third of the DLC. It's just not something that I, as a gamer, tend to gravitate towards for as long as I can remember them existing. But I think that it's very true that in the modern age, when you have so many live service games, so many games that are lifestyle games at this point, for me, for instance, I've always got something else going. It's either Call of Duty or Sea of Thieves, or now I'm playing Hunt Showdown or whatever. Like, that's my all the time game. And I really now tend to put in single player games as like fillers for them, for some downtime, or while I'm tired of that live service game. And so to come back to one of those games when there's so many other great games out, to come back for an expansion or a DLC and pay another $20 or $40 isn't always the move when you have so much else going on. So I think that there have obviously been some great ones. Obviously, you mentioned, Erdtree and Phantom Liberty and Shattered Space, but I'm not sure if that's considered a great one. But there are some solid DLCs out there, or expansions. But when they're coming out 6 and 8 months, a year after the game has released, we used to give developers a lot of shit for, oh, this DLC is actually already on the disc, we just have to pay to unlock it. But maybe that was the right move, because that meant it was done and they could release it like a month after the game came out, and then people were still interested in it. So I don't know. We'll still always have the Game of the Year editions for games that were never going to be Game of the Years that are going to include all of those, the deluxe editions, whatever. And but I know a lot of people who buy those. Like, if you buy the deluxe edition, you get this. I mean, the copy of Starfield I have has Shattered Space with it. I've been done with Starfield for a year. Like, I'm not going back right now. Sorry, it's just not happening.
Yeah. I'm with you guys. If DLCs did die, I wouldn't miss them personally, because I've always had the feeling that in a lot of cases the DLC is done when I buy the game at launch, and it's just they're withholding a chunk of the game so I can pay more money later. And it's also an excuse for publishers to, as you said, Ben, re-release the game later and kind of have an excuse to keep the price high. So I don't know. Brandon mentioned Blood and Wine, which for me is the only DLC that I've ever played that I was like, I needed to have that DLC. Otherwise, I'm just, you're right, Ben. Like when I'm halfway through a new game, considering how long these games take, I already have 3 other games that I want to play if they're not already in my backlog. So to expect that I'm going to go back to that game after it's just, yeah. So if DLCs are dying, I'm personally not going to miss them. Because it just, I don't know, in most cases they feel like a cash grab. But the Bethesda developer from the story, he did make an interesting point about how, you know, even if it's DLC for a game that just sold a bajillion copies, it's still not going to sell nearly as much. So Elden Ring sold 25 million copies, give or take, and Erdtree as of June had sold 5 million copies. So that's a lot for a DLC, but think of if you're just sort of an average selling game, like the amount of money you're going to have to invest to get, 20% of people who bought your game day one to pay a fraction of that for more. It's just, I understand that the money just isn't there for developers. So, but again, I don't know if I'd miss it too much.
I agreed.
On to the next one. Netflix. Netflix is removing Netflix is removing almost all of its interactive specials this month. The streaming company confirmed to Engadget that it will have removed 20 of its 24 existing interactive specials by December 1st. The only 4 that will remain are Black Mirror, Bandersnatch, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy vs. the Reverend, You vs. Wild, and Ravnir vs. Wild with Bear Grylls. Most of the interactive specials played out like branching stories, with viewers watching a show that would occasionally ask them to make decisions that would affect the storyline. Most contain multiple endings, encouraging players or watchers to rewatch the interactive specials to see what the other outcomes would have been. When they were first introduced, interactive specials were seen by some as one of Netflix's first attempts to add game-like content to its service. Indeed, Bandersnatch is about a British game developer in the 80s and was named after a cancelled computer game. Netflix spokesperson Chris Kelleher told The Verge that the interactive special idea had served its purpose, but is now limiting as we focus on technological efforts in other areas. The full list of interactive specials set to be removed is on the internet, so you can go look it up if you care. We started talking about Netflix and Amazon doing video game stuff on Fire TV and streaming services about 3 years ago, and I was really curious to see where it was going to go. Now, Netflix does have actual games on their service, and this interactive thing was sort of like a branch of their gaming strategy, and clearly it hasn't worked. So, Brandon, are you a Netflix subscriber?
I was. I recently canceled after close to 10 years, so...
Did you ever engage with any of this interactive content, whether it be these shows or any of the actual games that they have?
No, not a single one. And I think that's really part of it. I think the whole you can play Vice City. I think that there's something there, right? I feel like that's a good thing. But this whole branching narrative type wannabe Detroit become human until dawn light bullshit. I love those type of games, and this almost feels like an insulting baby's first ripoff of that. at least at first glance, and what I had understood about it and why I never engaged in it in the first place. So I think this PR speak that this lady said, what the fuck did she say? It's so insulting. We're gonna focus on other technologies. Yeah, I'd imagine you are, because nobody's fucking playing it. What they really hoped is that grandma would get in on this and tell all of her friends, and then all the old people would be at home playing Netflix, stories all day. But the reality is I would imagine that if I asked all the people that I know that have Netflix, they probably wouldn't even know this sort of thing existed. So I think the future is potentially getting like actual real games on Netflix and making them more accessible to people in a wider audience that just own Netflix. But as far as this whole half-baked, interactive, weird IP bullshit, it didn't catch on, and it's for a reason. It's because it's kind of generic and lame. So yeah, I'm glad to see it go, because we don't need junk. Clear the internet of this garbage, is what I say. So goodbye.
Speaking of garbage, Real Radic in the chat says a Drake fan is hosting the HP podcast. You'll love to see it. I am not a Drake fan, but Ben, did you ever play anything on Netflix?
Yeah, so I don't have Netflix anymore. I also canceled it a little while back, but I did do the Bandersnatch experience. I thought it sucked, and because my kids wanted to do it, they thought it was the coolest thing in the world. The U versus Wild, and they, they're super into animals and everything else, and survival and all that, and that was actually okay. But I think aside from the fact that like what Brandon said, that most people don't know these experiences exist, I think the thing about much of the content on Netflix is that people watch shows over and over. Now, maybe they don't watch all shows over and over. They don't watch all movies over and over. But by and large, people are like, oh, I've watched Friends for the 87th time. I've watched this movie, every year on Halloween for my entire life, whatever. And I think the thing with these types of experiences is that once you do them, maybe if you really enjoyed it, you go back and do it again with different decisions to see how it pans out. But it's not repeatable experiences. So they're not evergreen content in the same way that the actual movies and TV shows are repeatable content. Video games at least take you a while to play through, although, the types of games they're putting on there are not necessarily that. So I would say that there's probably, one, not a large demand, two, not a large understanding that they exist, and three, not a lot of evergreen repeatable content for people to consume in multiple iterations with this type of stuff. So, I'm okay with letting them fund some games and put them on their platform, and they'll probably come to other platforms eventually as well. But as far as these specials, I don't know. There's a reason they stopped doing choose your own adventure books. I don't think they really do those anymore. And it's because when people finish them, they just didn't care. Like it doesn't stick with you. And I don't know why that is, but I want to have a story told to me. I don't want to be part of the story unless I'm playing it. And this is not a game. I press a couple prompts during a movie. So
this is like 2 sniffs away from a Telltale game. So
big time. I think my only idea here was
it's almost as bad as Life is Strange.
The strategy was to double people's watch time, so they have to watch this Kimmy Schmidt thing twice over to see all of the different endings. And if they're pulling the plug, that means that people just didn't do that. And I can only imagine how this would drive production costs, because you're having to produce double the content. And if people aren't engaging with half of that content, then what's the point? So right. I really wish Netflix would look at social experiences like Jackbox, and find a way to put that on TVs and control everything from people's phones. Because that's where I think people would engage with the content. But I don't know. It's not surprising that this particular type of media is starting to fail for Netflix. So
yeah, so if you want to check out Boss Baby Get That Baby, you got till December 1st to do it.
Boys, I know what we're doing after this.
This next one is for Derek O, which he was in chat earlier, and I hope he's still there because Nintendo confirms Switch 2 announcement is less than 5 months away. Nintendo has reconfirmed that the Switch successor will be revealed by the end of March 2025. So that's the end of the current fiscal year, when its current fiscal year concludes. Company president Shuntaro Furukawa made the announcement during an online press conference on Tuesday following the publication of Nintendo's latest earning results, saying that announcement plans for the Switch successor have not changed. Okay, this is the important part for Derek. Analysts are predicting that the Nintendo won't make an announcement this week, this month, next month, or this year, as doing so could have an impact on sales leading in the 2024 holiday season. So please stop trying to convince us that, trust me, bro, it's coming this week. Making an announcement this year has gotten quite difficult. Toyo Securities analyst Hideki Yasuda said to Reuters, "You would not want to divert attention to an upcoming console in the middle of a critical year-end shopping season." Meanwhile, Nintendo has lowered its Switch hardware sales forecast down from 13.5 million to 12.5 million for the rest of the fiscal year. For a platform that is in its 8th year on the market, both hardware and software enjoy stable demand and brisk sales, Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa said to VGC. So, fellas, there we go. Derek, he's still here. Probably not this week, maybe next week. Yeah, I surprise at all that there was a lot of rumbling that we were going to get Switch 2 last month, but we got an alarm clock, and then there was some rumblings that we were going to get it last week, but then we got a streaming service that nobody asked for, and now we have confirmation that it's still going to come this fiscal year, but probably not this calendar year. Ben, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts of Switch 2?
Yeah, I mean, they told us a while back that it would be within the next, within the fiscal year. And I thought, maybe it could come out by the end of this year. But when you have the momentum they have and you have new games continuing to come out, Brothership's just coming out, a new Mario Party just came out, a new Zelda just came out. Like when you have those games still coming out before a holiday season, it's just like he said, it doesn't make any sense. Once you get into about September, it's like, okay, well, if they haven't announced it yet for this holiday season, they're not going to. So it doesn't really surprise me to say that it's going to be next year. Now, I could see it being a very quick turnaround, announcement late January, release by the end of March. I could see that. But I'm not surprised it's not going to be before the end of this year, despite what Derek has said. And also, Derek brings up a point that Nintendo Music is a game changer. I have not experienced it myself. I have it downloaded and everything, and I'm signed into it and I'm ready to go, but I have not actually tried it out. But I've been hearing that it's actually pretty cool. But I don't understand because it's just music. So.
I should rephrase the question. Do you think Nintendo ever planned to announce the Switch 2 by the end of 2024 calendar year?
No, and I don't think they ever did because they said fiscal year, not calendar year.
Right.
Because if they actually plan to release it in the calendar year, they would want their investors to know that and act appropriately with their money.
Fair enough. Brandon, any Switch 2 hype in the Duncan household?
No, not really.
Over to me.
No,
Okay.
no, not really at all. I don't really have anything else to say about this. Ben kind of said it all. I mean, it's great that it's coming, and until I see a reason that I need it, which probably won't exist, I probably won't get it. I'm sure I'll be able to play all the new Nintendo games I want on my Switch 1. So I'm not concerned, because when I boot up my Switch, I know it's gonna look like shit and run like shit. So that's just kind of the way it goes, and I'm not willing to spend any more money on this IP. So, yeah, I'm glad, and I hope the Nintendo doesn't gimp itself with more outdated hardware. But I think when we learn next year how powerful it's going to be, we're going to learn that it's going to be underwhelming. It's going to be more of a whimper than a bang, boys, and I'm calling it now.
It's working for them, so why not?
And that's fine. And that's exactly why I'm a hater, first and foremost, is that, I know I'm a hater, right? and I acknowledge that I'm a hater, and that everyone else likes it, and that's fine. I'm just a hater, but I'm also right. This shit is underpowered. So I'm not backing down. I'm just
Fair enough.
not.
Yeah, it's I don't think I got swept up in the hype because I am very excited for Switch 2. But it just didn't make sense because it's as you mentioned, Ben, Mario Party, Zelda, and Brothership all launching at the end of 2024. Why would you detract from that? The console is still selling really, really well. All of the first party games always sell really, really well. Um and if you look ahead to 2025, there isn't really a whole lot there. Like Metroid Prime, but that's rumored to be the Switch 2 launch title. So yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be early part of the year. I hope it is. And yeah, Switch 2. I'm day one at the moment, but we'll see. Last, we'll move into what we've been playing. Brandon, what have you been playing?
So I've just played more Black Ops this week. Absolutely nothing new to say other than it is good to be back in Nuketown. Legendary, legendary map. Glad to see its return. Not surprised it's coming back or that it came back, but good to see it. I've always loved that map dearly. And so that's always good. I do want to try the infected mode. I saw they added that. I've not tried that yet personally. But I do want to give it a. Is it cool? Yeah, so I'm sure it's fine. That's the kind of game mode that you just pop in every once in a while to mix things up. The only infected game mode that I ever played consistently and like for many, many, 30, 40 hours was Halo Reach Infected. And since then, the infected modes are fun, but never something that like isn't more than just mixing it up. So that's good. And yeah, I prestige, so that's good. I didn't get to play much during Double XP weekend, but I got a little bit of time in, so that's good. I still think the guns level up way too slow, but yeah. And lastly, I've been playing the Pokemon trading card game, TCGP, as it's called, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. I do really, really like Pokemon in general, and I have for many years. I did collect Pokemon cards back in the day, and I like collecting cards in general, but then you just have a bunch of cards, and when you're done with them, you just have a bunch of paper, unless you sell them off or are really smart about, how you do it. So this is kind of a nice in-between for me. I get to have the satisfaction of opening packs, but I don't have any of the mess, and I could technically do it for free because in this game, you can open up a free pack every single day or maybe 2 free packs a day. So yeah, this is the best of both worlds, and it's also very feature heavy. Like props to the company that developed this. Like I feel like it is the full-fledged Pokemon card experience. Like the battles are awesome. I've not personally battled with anyone. I want to battle with some of my friends here. I feel like that would be ideal. You can battle with strangers. I've done it once or twice by accident, actually. But yeah, it has everything that you physically buying the cards would be, aside from you physically owning the cards. So that's kind of cool. I'm not going to spend money. I'm never spending money on this game. But the fact that I can still do it for free is really awesome for me. I'm excited for trading. I have a couple duplicates of really awesome cards that I know my buddies will want. And if they don't have them, I'm going to want to trade them for dupes they have. So I think that's cool. And it does open up the possibility to make money off of this sort of thing, which is also something very interesting. I never thought you'd be able to make money off of digital cards because it seems ridiculous, but Star Wars Card Trader changed that for me. You can make a lot of money off digital cards, a lot of money. And the fact that it's Pokemon makes me think that that possibility skyrockets, like exponentially increases. So that wasn't necessarily my first thought because I do like it. What I'm saying is worst case, like I play it for a while and then someone wants my shit, and then who knows? If I don't dump any money into it, maybe it's an investment long term. Maybe I'm investing my time, is what I'm saying, to get a return. So it's cool for now, and I'm really enjoying it. The battles are pretty neat, and I never actually played Pokemon. I only ever collected the cards. So this is kind of a cool thing for me.
Awesome. Ben, I believe you've also been playing Pokemon. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll talk about Pokemon and Black Ops a little bit. I guess I don't have a ton more to say about Black Ops yet, but I did play a good bit of Nuketown, a good bit of and I was gonna make the same comment that the weapons are very slow to level up. But I don't know why I forget this every release, and eventually someone reminds me. Hopping into hardcore levels up your weapons and your XP and everything so much faster, just because you're consistently like you're getting more kills generally, and it's way more rapid. I don't know if the XP is actually increased. Is that true, Brandon? Is it? No, the XP isn't increased. You're just getting more because you're doing more damage in general. I also started to play the campaign a little bit. I'm 2 or 3 missions into it. I think there's only like 6 or 8. But so far, I'm enjoying it. It's everybody's praising it and saying it's great and it's the best, one of the best campaigns in a long time. And they're right. It's one of the best Call of Duty campaigns in a long time. But as far as a AAA single player game, it's not very good. It's very predictable, very run of the mill basic. But I want to judge it for what it is. It's a Call of Duty campaign, and for that, it is very good. Some cool stealth stuff, some more open world stuff. There's even a little bit of base building in it. I haven't fully explored how much that actually impacts the gameplay through the campaign, but it's cool. It's different than here. You're dropped in a mission, travel on this very linear path, and kill people. Like it's very different than that so far. So I'm enjoying it, and it's only like 6 or 8 hours, so I'm not. It's not that big of a commitment. More to the point of what Brandon was saying about the Pokemon game, it is for some it is crack. For someone who grew up with Pokemon cards, both collecting and playing, and probably not really having a good idea of how to play, and then someone who my kids are into it now, of course, it is really cool to be able to go in and open these cards and not having it's not even that you're not spending the money, although that's nice. It's that I don't have to worry about getting a binder and protecting these cards and making sure my fingerprints aren't on them and making sure that they're not getting bent and everything or worrying about how much they're going to be worth or anything like that. I'm just enjoying these cards for what they are and playing with them, looking at them, putting them in little collection binders and stuff in the app. And at any point, if I want to put away all these cards, I just close the app and I'm done. And I don't have to think about it or worry about where they are or hope they don't get stolen out of my backpack at school during recess. Like everything is perfectly good with it. The battles are pretty cool. As Brandon mentioned, you can play against real people, you can play against AI. There's a good teaching session that teaches you, like walks you through different levels of difficulty and actually teaches you how to play. I don't know all the new rules in Pokemon to date, but there are some things that I know they've changed. Like for instance, you're only going to gain one kind of energy throughout your play because you're not actually bringing in energy cards like you would in the handheld game or in the physical game. You have a deck that you assign a certain thing to, so you can really only play to a large extent either colorless energy Pokemon or one other specific type of Pokemon that you can.
Well, you can double energy.
You can double energy, but the ratio is like weird. So like if you don't know what's coming, you might not have the right cards out for it. So you can do that as far as the cards. As far as actually accumulating energy for it, though,
It's kind of random.
it's pretty random. So it's just not as cohesive. If you're building a deck like a physical deck in person with water and lightning, you can put water and lightning energy in them, and it's still not 100% known for certain what you're going to pull, but at least you have a little better idea of what's coming up next in your deck and how many you have of each. As far as the battles against other people, I've done a few of these, and they give you the option when you load in to either choose beginner or like more experienced. And I've only done beginner so far because number one, I am a beginner, and number two, I wanted it to be easier. I have won a few I've won a few battles against other real people, but not a single person has actually been a beginner that I've played against, and they've been in the beginner category. They're all coming in with like premium primo cards and strategies that I'm like, there is no way that guy just learned to play this game. And I understand, like, there's a little bit of smurfing going on. There's a little bit too of like, well, I'm not an expert, but I do know how to play. I get it, but I'm wondering if at some point they will put in some sort of a ranking system or tournament system or something like that, because you have no skin in the game. It's not like you're giving up a card or something whenever you lose a battle. But the fact that you go in and somebody pulls out their first 3 cards and you're immediately like, oh, I know that's their strategy. They're going to destroy me, and I never even would have thought of that. But I can read it. It's a little disappointing just from that perspective. But I have been playing my kid a little bit, and I've been destroying him every match. That's probably not an even matchup either, but it is what's important to me that I am beating my son. I recommend it. Well, yes, in the game.
I would love to destroy him at the game as well.
Did you add him as a friend?
I did.
Okay, I'll have to tell him. I don't know if he knows how to check that.
No, we're friends.
Oh, okay. He added you. Okay, good. I looked at his. I started playing like a full day before him, and I looked at his profile and I was like, "How are you a higher level than me?" He goes, "I just put it on auto battle and just battle AI." I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "You just get XP." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's." I wish I'd known
That's
that.
smart. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, he's like, "That's how I open so many packs all the time." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, guess he knows how to add friends too." That's it for me.
Cool. I played Monster Hunter Wilds this weekend.
Nice,
as I
dude.
mentioned, my daughter was sick, so I didn't get to play as much as I wanted. But I was kind of on the fence about playing this beta simply because I'm day one for this game. There's no question. So I was a bit worried that I play this beta and I'd kind of lose some of that day one sheen of getting a brand new game. But I couldn't resist, and I downloaded it. And the opening of this game, the opening of the beta, I assume, is the opening of the game. And man, it's pretty friggin' epic. Yeah, it's so fun playing like a premium AAA Monster Hunter. That's not to take anything away from Rise, because I loved Rise, but like I loved World, and just kind of getting back to that scale of game is going to be so awesome. So the end of February can't come soon enough. The game looks great. It feels great. They have added a lot of cool little things. One of the biggest ones for me is you ride around on your there are these bird thingies. They're called sacrets, and they're a lot like the Palamutes from Monster Hunter Rise, and they're your vehicle, and you can actually use your like little hook shot thingy to gather materials as you're running along, and it just makes it so much easier. I really like that. You can sharpen on the back of your sacred, which again is a lot like the Palamute in Monster Hunter Rise. And yeah, I didn't play for a super long time because again I didn't want to see a lot of stuff that I'm going to see on day one at the end of February. But I mean, what I did experience was like it seems to have gotten a little bit faster than World. I think World was a lot more difficult than Rise. And I feel like just in the short time I played with Wilds, it feels like maybe Wilds is going to land in the middle. And again, I only played a couple of bosses, so it's really hard to even gauge what the difficulty is going to be like. But just from a movement perspective, like it was a little bit less tanky than World, but still had that quintessential Monster Hunter feel. So there are 2 major structural changes coming to this game that are new for the series. And I want to talk about both of them because one I loved and one I'm not so sure of. Excuse me. The one I loved is, as everybody knows, you get to take 2 main weapons into battle now. And I started in the Monster Hunter series with World, and my main weapon was the Insect Glaive. Insect Glaive, for those who don't know, is sort of light damaged, very fast attacking, high mobility, that kind of weapon. In Monster Hunter Rise, my main weapon was the Switch Axe, which is polar opposite of what the Insect Glaive is. And I love both of those weapons. So the fact that I can take both of those weapons into battle and switch between them virtually on the fly is a game changer for me. That's so cool. And you know, the thing about Monster Hunter is you're going to come up against certain hunts where maybe you're going to try and solo it and it's not going to work, so you need to call in for help, but you don't really know who's going to show up. So if I'm running an Insect Glaive and somebody else with an Insect Glaive or dual blades comes in, then I'm gonna pop back to my Sacred and switch to Switch Axe. And I just think that's so cool. And I love that. I'm the kind of person who only wants to focus on one or two weapons, so the fact that I don't have to pick is great. So I really like that. The other big change that's coming to this game is, maybe it's not that big of a change, but when you finish a hunt, you stay in the open world, or you stay in the biome. In other Monster Hunter games, as soon as the hunt is finished, you get 60 seconds to carve the monster, and then you're taken right back to the main base. And when hunts finished in the Wilds beta,
Uh-oh. He's gone.
sorry, you guys still with me?
Oh, here we are. I think I hear him now.
Okay.
I hear him. He's caught up. All right.
All right.
Yeah, sorry. The reason I didn't like that as much is because, in my opinion, hunts should be exhausting. You should give everything you need, use a bunch of different items and resources by the end of the hunt that you should not want to be in the open world. And again, my first inclination when the hunt finished was, I need to go back, I need to restock, I need to sharpen, I need to check what, new stuff I can craft, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm sure there is an easy way to instantly get back after a hunt finishes, but I'm not sure what the logic is behind that change. So otherwise, Monster Hunter Wilds, the beta felt great. I cannot wait for this game to come out. I'm going to book time off work for this game. It's just that type of game for me.
Nice.
So the other thing is, as I mentioned last week, there was a number of new updates to Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. So I spent quite a bit of time with Survivor. And yeah, they've added in a bunch of new content to keep people playing. There's weapon mastery challenges where you go into a dive with just one weapon and you play through 3 phases rather than 5. I did not like that because, like, leveling up a variety of weapons is what's cool to me in Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. So just going in with one weapon just kind of felt like you missed the point for me. There's also contracts that spawn in. So once a day, there's a special mission where there are 2 buffs for the player and then 2 buffs for the enemies. So it gives you advanced rewards and stuff like that. So there's also a new biome that's really cool. It looks really cool. But the biggest thing is there are these jump pads now where, like, if you're running away from a group of enemies, you can hit these jump pads and it just immediately gets you away from the pack, and whatever you land on instantly gets mined. So a really cool sort of gameplay thing they've added there, but haven't really changed the wheel with anything. It's just kind of new content for Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. But I'm still having a great time with that game. So yeah, that's it for me. Monster Hunter Wilds and Survivor.
I got to dive back into Survivor at some point. Even if just for a little bit. I had a good time with it, for sure.
They broadcast a world championship on Twitch for Survivor. It was awesome. It was so well done. Anything that the Ghost Ship Games team touches is awesome to me. So yeah. And
did you see what Edward Walton said in chat?
You can open the map in Monster Hunter Wilds to fast travel to various spaces on the map after hunt. I know you can do that, but it's a weird change for me. Yeah. Anyways.
Cool.
Ben, you can wrap it up because I don't
It's
know.
back
how
to me now.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for the show. Thanks, Dave, for taking over for me there. Appreciate it. Don't forget you can support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/HandsomePhantom for as little as $1 a month. Ad-free early access, all that good stuff. You can also join us on Discord at handsomephantom.com/Discord. Boys, we need a show title before we get out of here. Dave Lane.
Show title.
Nintendo Switch 2 next week.
Death of DLC.
Death of DLC. Perfect. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Yeah. You've probably got stuff to do. So thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys next time. Next week. Same bat time, same bat. Wait, is it next week that we're changing?
No, I think
No,
it's
it's a
the week
couple
after
weeks.
that.
We'll fill
Yeah,
you
it's
in the next
2
week.
weeks away.
Okay. All right. Goodbye then. See you later.
Bye. Goodbye.
I hit end stream.